This is Harsh Rules, I'm Ben Harsh, and today let's learn to play Conflict of Heroes, Guadalcanal. Conflict of Heroes, Guadalcanal was released in 2016 by Academy Games, and designed by Uwe Eickart, Gunther Eickart, and Dean Haley. This game supports up to 4 players and takes about 1 hour to play. Conflict of Heroes Guadalcanal is a tactical war game that uses customizable game boards and components to recreate historical conflicts from the Pacific theater of World War II. Instructions for setting up one of these conflicts, which the game refers to as firefights, can be found in the game's second rulebook called the Guadalcanal Firefight Book. For this tutorial, we will use Firefight 1, Go Edges Patrol, for our primary example. This is a simplistic introductory firefight to teach players basic game concepts. Let's walk through the basic layout of this firefight page to learn how to get started. The first section gives players the general situation of the historical firefight. Also, since these scenarios are based on actual history, there is a section that explains how the scenario you are about to begin played out in real life. Below this is a box that provides information to set up each player's track sheet, the necessary game boards, and any cards that are required. Let's pause now and set up the game with the information we have thus far. First, let's lay the foundation of our gameplay area. According to the setup section, this scenario requires game board 13. Although it's hard to make out, you can identify the board by looking in the corners for the number. Now, all these boards are gorgeous, but the designers have camouflaged the hexes so much that they almost vanish into the scenery. So, in typical Harsh Rules fashion, I will augment key aspects of the board to make it easier to learn. Let's begin by revealing the hexes. Now that we can see the hexes more clearly, let's define the axes. The y-axis is lettered, and the x-axis is numbered. Now that we can see our axes, it will be much easier to set up the game. Next, let's place each player's track sheets. On the left side, place the US track sheet. On the right side, the Japanese track sheet. Each player's track sheet is a dashboard of critical information necessary for players to manage their resources. These sheets record the current time remaining in the game, a player's current victory points towards winning the firefight, and the available command and unit action points for their troops. Each individual track is color-coded to manage a particular game mechanic. The first track is for recording the current round in the firefight. Firefight number 1 only lasts 4 rounds. To set up this track, place a round marker on space 1 for each side. A quick note, the game only comes with 1 round marker. I'm showing 2 here for clarity's sake. Many players place the round marker directly on the firefight page they're playing. In the end, it's what works best for you. Working our way down the sheet, let's talk about the yellow track. For the US player, this is the victory track. Place the US victory marker on space 1. For the Japanese, this is the Bushido track and starts at 0. We'll talk more about the difference between these 2 tracks later. This first scenario does not use Bushido points, so place the Japanese victory marker on space 1. Below the yellow victory track is the blue command action point track. Once again, following the setup rules, the US player begins with 8 caps, the Japanese player 5 caps. Command action points, or caps for short, represent the abstract influence of leadership and logistics. This command influence is implemented as points that can be spent to augment an individual unit's actions or status, influence dice results, and other critical game-changing effects. We will definitely talk about the use of caps a little later in the tutorial. Below the blue cap track is the green individual action point track. Each side can place their action marker on space 7 of this track. When a unit is activated, it begins with a default of 7 action points. Action points allow a unit to move on the board, as well as conduct attacks against the enemy. Firefight number 1 does not require action or bonus cards. These cards introduce additional elements into the gameplay. While this mission does not require cards, other missions do, so we will discuss cards later in the tutorial. This section also has information on setting up the hit counters for each side. Hit counters assign casualty effects to units in the game. We will discuss this in much greater detail a little later in the tutorial. The next section in the Firefight setup sheet instructs players on the events that take place during each round. For example, in round 1, the Japanese player has the initiative. In other words, they get to go first. But the US player may bring in reinforcements. In round 2, the Japanese player can bring in their reinforcements. And in round 3, the US forces may leave in their boat. And the firefight ends in round 4. The remaining sections of this sheet detail the available starting units and reinforcements, as well as additional rules for each side. On the right side of the sheet is a handy terrain reference table and a map visual with the placement of components and reinforcement entry points. This is the general instruction layout for setting up a firefight. Later firefights may be much more complicated and have more components, but they follow this basic structure. We're going to borrow some of these visual aids for our tutorial setup as we continue learning the game. Now that we're back to our play area, let's discuss the Firefight Overview as we set up the board. A contingent of 5th Marines under the command of Colonel Goedge have boarded an LCP. The Marine landing party is composed of 2 bar units and 4 rifle units. Their mission is to investigate intel of a group of demoralized Okinawan and Korean laborers and Japanese engineers, and obtain the group's surrender. The LCP landing craft hits the beach at coordinates I-4 and unloads 6 units. The 5th Marines' orders are as follows. 1 force will defend the landing site, and the 2nd force will scout ahead into the jungle to gather information on the enemy. Once the scouts have completed their mission, all the units will return to the LCP to escape. Unfortunately, the Marines have accidentally landed east of the point where Japanese resistance is still reported. This resistance is led by Japanese Lieutenant Soichi Shindo. Lieutenant Shindo's forces are comprised of 3 infantry units and 1 medium machine gun unit. Nearby reinforcements of 2 additional infantry units and a medium machine gun unit will arrive in round 2. Shindo's orders are to eliminate all Marines before they can escape by boat. The winner of this firefight will be dictated by victory points. The US scores 1 victory point for each round that they do not recall the scouts to the board. Therefore, the longer the scouts remain off the board, the more victory points they can earn. The US will then score victory points when the LCP departs in round 3. The US scores 2 victory points per unit that is on or adjacent to the LCP. A quick note, the LCP itself is only a marker in this firefight. It cannot take actions or be attacked. The Japanese player scores 2 victory points for each US unit eliminated. The Japanese player also scores 4 victory points for each US unit that has not entered the map or is still on the map at the end of the game in round 4. In other words, they were not able to escape on the boat. As you can see, both sides have interesting objectives to employ various tactics. For the American player, how long can they hold out before recalling the scouts? For the Japanese, can they eliminate the Marine defenders at the boat and cut off the escape to the returning scouts? Either way, even this introductory firefight provides suitable tension and problem solving to explore over multiple playthroughs. And we've just begun looking at the game. There's still much more to come. Now that you know the setup and stakes for the first firefight, this is a good place to break before moving deeper into the rules. In the next episode, we will learn how to read the game's unit markers and prepare for battle. Questions about this game, requests for future Harsh Rules tutorials, and constructive feedback are all greatly appreciated. Hit the like button and drop a line in the comments section. To be notified when future episodes of Harsh Rules become available, subscribe and click the bell icon. As always, I'm Ben Harsh for Harsh Rules. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next episode.